Welcome to the Deeper Into Movies podcast. My name is Stephen T. Hanley. I'm the founder and lead curator of Deeper Into Movies. We're a pop-up cinema based in London and New York. Today on the podcast, I am joined by filmmaker and documentarian Alexandre O Philippe. You may know him from his previous movies. He did a documentary on Alien, on William Friedkin's The Exorcist called Leap of Faith, which was incredible. That's one of my all-time favorite film documentaries. Highly recommend you check that out. Today, he is here to talk about his new documentary, Lynch Oz. A documentary going deep into David Lynch's obsession with the Wizard of Oz. You can see Oz all through David's movies. The Red Shoes, The Winds, A Woman in Trouble, and Philippe divides the film into 7 sections with filmmakers and film thinkers giving their own theories on the parallels between The Wizard of Oz and the David Lynch universe. It's such an amazing deep dive, and it was a real pleasure to watch. Here is me with Alexandre O Philippe.
Hello.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Hold on. Let me close the window.
Sure. Is this early for you? This is early for me. I never really.
No, it's all good. Trust me. I've got a full day of interviews today, so
Okay, good.
I'm fine. I like the Gummo poster behind you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's the VHS poster.
Oh wow.
That was one of the first movies that really blew my mind when I was
It's
late teen, early 20.
yeah.
And insane, this was released by a major studio. Absolutely bizarre.
I know, right?
By today's perspective, that something this weird could get through. But I think it was just what did they say? Just the success of kids just pushed it through.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start at the beginning. What films were you into? What made you want to become a filmmaker?
Boy, that's I'm going to try to keep this short because, my cinephilia runs deep. But, my parents really took me to the movies a lot. My dad, both my parents are, cinephiles. Well, my dad passed away now, 9 years ago, but I remember watching a lot of films with him. My mom would take me to the movies a lot. Vertigo is among the first movies that I remember just completely falling in love with. I was probably very, very young. It's still my absolute favorite film. I was watching a lot of Columbo when I was a kid, which I still love. Peter Falk in Columbo. It's just such a perfect show. But I was exposed to a lot of different things, and when I was about 12 years old, I remember having these quote unquote salons with my parents and their friends, where every week we'd have them over, and I'd show a movie on VHS. I would usually sort of curate like programs by director over several weeks. I remember having obviously a Hitchcock couple of months, and then we had.
Oh my God, you were having seasons?
Yeah. We were having
amazing.
Yeah. And then it's so funny because we would watch the film. I would do a little intro, watch the film, and then we'd do a Q&A afterwards. So yeah,
oh my
and I'm still doing this as an adult.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's
and great parents to support that. I guess they were just cinephiles too, or
yeah.
What are you?
Oh yeah. No, it's been. I mean, obviously, because my friends were not Like this was, like I said, I was like 12 or 10 or 12 or whatever it was, but it was all adults. None of my friends would show up to these. So.
And I was just thinking, because you said you were so young and your friends wouldn't turn up, was there a point where you realized, okay, this is like deeper to me than it is to my friends at the same age who also were into movies?
I don't know necessarily that I was thinking sort of consciously about that. I mean, when I was 17, I actually wanted to be a golf professional, so I kind of followed that for a while. I actually did turn pro, and then went back to school and started writing plays. I thought I wanted to be a playwright, then I thought I wanted to be a screenwriter, and then sort of found my way towards filmmaking in a sort of very strange, organic way. But now it makes complete sense. I mean, what I'm doing, specifically the films about film and the way that I make them, completely makes sense. But I feel that it was very, very serendipitous. It almost feels in a way like sort of life had plans for me, and I sort of went along with that. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool, and I'm loving it. I'm loving every bit of it.
How do you describe your style of documentary?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would say I don't really use the word documentary. I mean, even though technically you could say that it's that, but it's really more, films about film in a way. I mean, I make films very specifically about films that have become cultural moments. Films that in a way are more than just movies, because I'm very interested in this idea of the sheer power of the moving picture and how it influences us, how it plays with our brains, quite frankly, and how we incorporate that into our sort of day-to-day, cultural life. So, not surprisingly, all the films that I have spent time analyzing and deconstructing and delving into are, films like Psycho, like Alien, like The Exorcist, like Star Wars, films that have a real sort of cultural significance and cultural resonance. And I think those are really important films to study and look into, because they really have something to say about us, as people. So I think that's kind of, I mean, I'm realizing, that's what sort of my life's work in a way is. And I keep going deeper and deeper into that. And, the more films I make, the more work there is to be done. It's never going to be a finished job. And so, hopefully I'll live a long life and make many, 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 many more.
For 7852, when I first read the synopsis,
yeah,
obviously I loved the film, but when I first read the synopsis, I thought, how the hell is this guy going to make a 90-minute movie about a 2-minute sequence? Then I was like, how much meat is on the bone to analyze that? I was wondering, how was it pitching that to get that made? What did people have similar concerns that?
Yeah. No, that was the challenge, and it was for me and first of all, I'll say I completely understand people who would ask that question, but for me the frustration was that from my perspective it was more a question of like, how do I not make a 3-hour film about the shower scene? And honestly, like keeping it down to 90 minutes was really hard. But then, you have to realize who you're catering to, that obviously, ultimately this is a film, not just for hardcore cinephiles, but also for the general public. In fact, also potentially for people who have never watched Psycho. So you want to make it accessible, and there are certain aspects of it that are just way too geeky that we had to cut out. But I mean, look, I will tell you right now, I mean, obviously there's many films that I'm going to make, but I am actually planning another film about the shower scene, completely different than 7852. There's much, much more to be said. And by the time we delivered the film, by the time we premiered the film, I really felt like, gosh, I've really only scratched the surface about this thing. So.
Really?
Yeah.
Before that, nobody had really killed off a main character in such a shocking way.
Well, not in such a shocking way, in a way that really resonated with culture. And I think part of that was that Hitchcock already. I mean, it's all, of course, linked to Hitchcock. There are certain expectations. He had built his reputation over decades. And so, you have to understand, obviously, people at the time were always sort of expecting, his next trick. What is he going to do next? And that one was really, I think, his boldest trick on many, many levels. I mean, we could be obviously talking about the shower scene for hours, but I still think it's one of the greatest, cinematic sort of magic tricks in history, and obviously the response, speaks for itself.
And can you remember what it was? I remember he said he saw a film in the cinema. He was watching lots of B movies, and I think he said to one of his producers, maybe I'm seeing a lot of cinema magic in these B movies, but imagine if the B movies were in the hand of a auteur director such as myself, and how I could play with that. But I was trying to Google what the film was that he saw, that he had the eureka moment that said I could almost make a prototype / a movie that would.
Yeah, I don't know which film you're talking about, but there was obviously a very, very conscious choice, to use that shower murder as really the excuse to make this film. In fact, when I was at the Margaret Herrick Library in Los Angeles, researching, because they have a lot of the original sort of Psycho papers, and you can find the sort of Hitchcock's handwritten notes, and you can hold them in your hands, which is crazy. They need to frame those things. But there's this sort of early sequence by sequence handwritten draft by Hitchcock of Psycho, and the shower scene in sort of bold letters, all it says is the shower murder, and it's really telling because it sort of jumps up the page. And, as he has told in interviews, this is really the only reason why he was interested in sort of, making that film. As he says, the shower murder out of the blue. I mean, he was quite famous for, reading a book just once, discarding it, and just, crafting the film around what he remembered from it, or what was important to him, and that's why his films are so completely different from the source material. And of course, he worked with a number of screenwriters on that, but the idea was always, the one element about the book or the source material that he was interested in terms of doing something to his audience, and that's what it was for Psycho.
How is it talking to Pete Bogdanovich, who contributes in the film? He's one of my heroes. I love that.
Yeah, no, of course. It's very, very sad he passed away. No, it was wonderful. I mean, obviously a very, key contributor, and it was great to just hear his story about experiencing Psycho, in New York City, not knowing anything about it. And the thing that was most striking to me really is this notion of, he said the first time he saw it, when Mother pulls the curtain open, the people in the audience were screaming so loudly that he couldn't even hear the Bernard Herrmann score.
Wow.
I mean, that's insane. Like he actually started realizing there was a score there, like the second screening. I mean, those kinds of moments, like in my lifetime, I certainly haven't really experienced anything like this. I mean, those are super rare, collective moments. And what a thing that must have been to experience.
I know. I think the only time I felt that type of chaos was when I went to see Dusk Till Dawn when it first came out, and nobody knew it turned into a vampire film. and the entire 400 people in the audience, it's like, what the fuck? Like, where is this heading? Like, what type of movie? We're coming off Pulp Fiction and we're thinking it's going to be, like a crime genre movie to completely morph like that. That was probably the last time I've had a collective freak out.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I certainly, I've talked a lot about, experiencing the ending of the Blair Witch Project in a massive 2,000 seat theater, also in New York City. And
wow, yeah,
that final shot, man, that the sigh of the collective sigh of dread in the audience, just like a wave, just hitting you. That was really powerful. So yeah, there's very few of those moments, but when they happen, it's significant.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Mubi, a great streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema. I've been a Mubi subscriber for years. Mubi's catalog is full of iconic directors, emerging auteurs, and there's always something new to discover. With Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected. It's basically your own personal film festival. Let's pick some of my favorites from the Mubi UK catalog. Mysterious Skin, Greg Araki's movie from 2004. Arguably his best movie. Really moving, beautiful shoegaze soundtrack, and a genuinely haunting ending. And it's kind of a Christmas movie. Let's go for that as number one. Mubi UK have a really good selection of David Cronenberg movies, and I've not seen The Brood, 1979, and so many people I speak to say The Brood is Cronenberg's best. I know he made this when his wife was pregnant, and it's about mutant children. I haven't seen this, but I'm going on recommendations from friends, and I don't think I've let you guys down yet, so trust me on this one. And let me find one more. There we go. Easy. David Lynch, The Art Life. This is as close to getting to know David as you're going to get through this documentary. You're hanging out with him every day in his artist studio, and he tells the most creepy, terrifying story I've ever heard. There you go. That's my 3 recommendations. Ending on a sinister note, I'm okay with that. Enjoy. You can try Mubi for 30 days at mubi.com/deeper into movies. That's mubi.com/deeper into movies. For a whole month of great cinema for free. Leap of Faith is one of my favorite movies about movies.
Thank you.
And I came to it already thinking I knew loads about The Exorcist because I'm obsessed with William Friedkin. I think he's a maniac.
Yeah.
Complete genius and just such a character. Just so brash. And how did you approach that? Obviously, there's a great documentary about The Exorcist on the Blu-ray and stuff. What made you want to approach that film?
Well, this was also actually quite serendipitous because Friedkin actually invited me to his stable at the Sitges Film Festival. I was touring with 1752, and he was, he was getting their lifetime achievement award, there. But he had heard a lot about my film, and so he invited me to his table to tell me some stories about Hitchcock, and asked me immediately to send him the film, and then he invited me for lunch in Los Angeles 3 weeks later, and he basically sort of alluded to the fact that if I wanted to have access to his archives, that he would give me full access. And I mean, it was sort of this open invitation to make a film about The Exorcist. And of course I took the bait, and so I wanted to approach this from a very, very different perspective. I told him, I said, look, I would like to do something that's very similar to the Hitchcock Truffaut kind of interviews, where we would, let's schedule a bunch of days. Let's just crack it open for days, every scene, every sequence, every technique, every moment, every image. But I told him, I said, for me, this should be your personal exorcist, but also your exorcist through, classic cinema, through music, through art, painting. I mean, he's obviously he knows so much about art and music. And so, and we both agreed that we wouldn't even talk about special effects, because that's been well documented. And in a way, who cares? It's, special effects are great and it's very interesting. But as always, I'm just much more interested in the deeper meaning and the craft, the director's craft, for the film. And as a result, it opened up all kinds of other things. I mean, obviously, without giving it away, the final sequence in Kyoto was quite.
That's such a beautiful ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, with William, we've got such a great storyteller, raconteur.
Oh God,
the voiceover's done already.
Yeah, no, it's kind of
the same with Bogdanovich. Just they're both just incredible raconteurs. I could just listen to them talk about film all day.
Absolutely, and I'm actually working on another film right now with another one of those incredible performers, and that's William Shatner. So,
oh my God!
Yeah, so that one's a hoot.
So for Lynch, Oz, I'd say this is your most ambitious movie to date.
I like to think that every movie that I make is my most ambitious to date. I keep trying to raise the bar, and in many ways, I think this one was very ambitious, very difficult to make, but also.
Well, I guess the puzzle of putting together the connections between the two, is kind of at least linear. And when I heard about it, all I could piece together was there's some references in Wild at Heart. That's the only connections I drew. So by now I'd known your work, and I was like, okay, I want to be taken to school for a couple of hours and really be shown what I haven't already worked out. But how was it putting that film together?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was very, very difficult, but that's just, again, one of those rabbit holes. Once you start going down, it's unbelievable what we found. And I think, obviously, I have to, I can't say enough about our wonderful contributors, John Waters, Karin Kusama, and David Lowery, and Amy Nicholson, and, all those just wonderful, wonderful people. It's really, thanks to them that we were able to go this deep. But it was just a wonderful collaborative process. Also, my editor David Lawrence, who's a huge film geek, and he's a big reason for the film being what it is. His brother Aaron Lawrence, who's did an incredible score. Obviously, the entire team. But I mean, I to be perfectly honest, when we started making this film, I wasn't necessarily. Well, let me put it this way. In retrospect, I think it was a little bit crazy, because I don't think we knew for sure that there was enough material to make a feature film out of it. But I'm very intuitive. I sort of followed my intuition on this. I felt that it was the right project to do, and in the end, we had to leave a bunch of stuff out. So we could go deeper, but I think we've made the case that there are strong connections between Lynch and us.
How did you pick your contributors? Because the film's broken up. Is it 6 chapters?
Yep, 6 chapters.
How did you pick your people? Did you assign them, and then did you assign them homework and say, okay, I need a 15-minute essay on your take on this?
It was a very organic process. I mean, there's for me, it was, at the end of the day, it had to be people who were going to be completely all in on this and willing to go there with me. And I had approached other people who unfortunately either turned it down or couldn't do it or wouldn't do it, or said yes and then ultimately couldn't. And so it's always a very organic process, but I couldn't be more pleased with the combination of people that we have and the way that their chapters kind of work as a full narrative in a way. I think there's something really beautiful about that. But no, the process was it was a multi-step process. I first had what I call a jazz interview with them, and just basically called them on the phone and recorded very low res on my phone the conversation, and then we riffed on the idea until I felt like we had something, and then I went ahead and transcribed the interview, and then wrote what I thought was going to be their chapter. Wrote the script, submitted the script for their approval. We went back and forth a few times, made some changes together, and then when we were both really happy with the content of their chapter, then I sent them back to a recording studio, and that's what you have in the film.
Watching the film, I was really curious. So if you have audio essay recorded, then how is the process of then putting pictures to that essay?
Yeah, I mean, that's the painstaking aspect of it, because you don't have the luxury to cut back to somebody
talking head,
head, right? So it's very, very intense, and the writing of the script had to take that into consideration, right? So I mean, the clip selection process, the legal process, just everything that has to do with that was extraordinarily complex and intense, but again, also really cool, because you have to think about making sure that every clip makes a point, every clip makes an argument, every clip illustrates something or says something and moves the story forward. So as a result, you really have to have a discipline about that. And again, I can't say enough for David Lawrence, my editor on this. He did just a great job. I mean, we were on the phone every day, as we still are. I mean, we always talk about movies, but the process of working with him is always just wonderful. Yeah.
How was it working with John Waters? He's a legend.
He's wonderful. I was very fortunate because I had not met him in person, but a few months later, I got to meet him at the American Film Festival in Poland, in Wrocław, and we had coffee together, and he invited me to his show. He was doing a performance of his show. He's such a just lovely, gracious human being, and I'm really glad that he participated, because I think his story is so beautiful. The sort of the connections that he feels with David Lynch, that they were both kind of shaped and influenced by The Wizard of Oz in very powerful ways, very different ways, but you can see the Oz DNA in his work as well,
for sure. And when he was saying about they were both kind of joined by that 1950s era that they're kind of obsessed with, that very a judgmental era and a kind of conformist era, but also but the aesthetics and the style and the kind of picturesque America and suburbia is both something they've come back to in their work and subverted through the years. Yeah,
no, it was very important to get him involved, and I'm really very thankful that he agreed.
I had a weird question when I was watching the film. On one of the essays, we're talking about how Lynch could have been fascinated by Judy Garland's life and the tragedy that followed. And they said that the
Culver City Hotel.
Yes. Yeah, what's the story there? They said there was like a dark history to the hotel.
Well, the Munchkins went there, and just there was sort of reports of these Dionysian parties where they sort of really trashed, the hotel. And in fact, it's portrayed. I mean, obviously, dramatically portrayed in that film with Chevy Chase. Of course, I'm forgetting the title now.
National
Under the Rainbow.
Oh, Under the Rainbow.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's there were those reports, and obviously we have this brief interview clip of Judy Garland sort of mentioning the incident. So they had a reputation, those Munchkins.
So going back, what was the spark for the documentary? When did you feel there was? When did you begin to see the connections between David Lynch and Oz?
Well, I mean, they've been, discussed and, on sort of forums and among sort of David Lynch fans. It's the kind of stuff that pops up, and I'm not really sure, how I, or when I sort of made the conscious decision, let's move forward with this film. It's just something that I feel always happens organically. You think about it for a while, it's at the back of your mind for a long time, and then all of a sudden it becomes an evidence, like, we have to make this film. And so obviously I've been thinking about it for a while, but I do remember that there was a moment when Carrie, my producer, and I and David, our editor, we sort of had the conversation of, okay, let's move forward with this film.
It's so exciting when you're watching it for the first time and you've known Lynch's work all your life, and you start seeing when you do the great split screens where you start seeing the curtains, the yellow brick road to the yellow highway strips, and the use of wind, which is always greatly used throughout Eraserhead. It's so exciting when you see them all piecing together.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been, again, that's the part of the process that I really enjoy is bringing out those things. But it's it's not about solving any mysteries. If anything, I mean, what I like to say is that I think my films are more about sort of opening doors and creating more questions.
Yes.
Right. And it's certainly not in any way, shape, or form about trying to answer the mystery of David Lynch, because we'll never answer that, and it would be a pointless exercise, to try to answer that. But to open more doors of interpretation and really on doors on the mysteries of influence and inspiration on the creative process. I mean, that's fundamentally what this film is about.
Before I became a film programmer, I was a freelance journalist, and a David Lynch Polish Night Music album came out, and Sacred Bones, the label, says, we can send David 5 questions and we'll send you back his answers for your interview. So I'm calling up all my editors, like, I've got an interview with David Lynch. Will you take this interview? And they said, sure, let me see it. And I get my interview back, and David has answered 1 line per question. And it was just like, what drew you to Poland to record this album? And he wrote the factories. And then it was like, what do you like about this? And he was like, Polish women and the smoke from the factories at night. And it was just the worst interview. And I gave it back to all my editors, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? We're not going to print this. Is like 30 words max for this entire interview.
Yeah.
But so, he's a very difficult interview subject, which is probably...
But that's that's him, and that's a lovely thing. And I mean, I had a similar thing in the sense that obviously he was the first one that I approached. I knew he wasn't going to do it. And in fact, I'm glad he didn't, because he doesn't like to talk about his work. So, but his response, it was very kind. It was basically declined to be interviewed, but the way he put it is, it was I need to keep my eye on the donut.
Yes,
that's what he said.
Where's the expression? Like, look at the donut, not the whole.
Right, exactly. So there you go.
Finally, what's your favorite Lynch movie?
For me, it's a double feature. It's Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive. I think they're very sort of intricately linked, and they work together incredibly, I think. They're both The Wizard of Oz, of course. But they're just phenomenal films. Yeah. So.
Okay, I'm going to let you go.
All right.
I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking at some point soon.
Please do.
All right.
Cheers, buddy. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Boom. That was me and Philippe. Thank you to Dogworth for setting us up. That was a great talk. Again, I'm telling you, if you haven't seen Leap of Faith, do it. If you like William Friedkin, The Exorcist, The History of Cinema, check out that doc. It really blew me away. And you're probably thinking, oh, do I need another Exorcist doc? Yes, you do. Okay, that's it from me. Thanks for listening. Speak soon.